tank of gas? Does he boots on the wood, let the whiskey pass? I ain't preaching from a pulpit.
And welcome everybody once again to the FAFO Podcast, and we have another great guest for you guys today. That's right. Some people write because they enjoy telling stories. Others write because they feel the stories they're looking for simply don't exist. Today's guest falls into that second category. Richard Spegal began writing in high school after becoming frustrated with what he saw as a lack of mature, realistic fantasy and paranormal fiction. After serving with the legendary 82nd Airborne Division and later as an officer in the Pennsylvania National Guard, he eventually turned his lifelong hobby into a full-time writing career. Today, he writes dark fantasy, supernatural thrillers, military fiction, science fiction, and stories that refuse to fit neatly into a single genre. So please welcome our guest today on the FAFO Podcast, Richard Spegal. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today, buddy.
Oh, yeah, not a problem. Again, thanks for the invitation.
Oh, man, love having you here. So you've got quite an interesting story here. And before we dive too much into it, I already love these genres that you write in because they're some of my absolute favorites to read. Tell me, how did your love of writing start?
Well, I've always been on the creative side, and I think like in high school, writing was it was something to do when I was supposed to be paying attention in class because you could get away with it because the teacher assumes you're taking notes, whereas I'm not taking notes, I'm writing, but they don't have to know that.
That's right.
And then I kind of did it, and like you said, I ran out of stuff to read. So, and then it became more of a passion as I got older and just kept doing it. And then a couple of years ago, when we went to Egypt, I decided to kind of go out there and start getting published. And then when they medically retired me, there's not much in the civilian world I can do anymore. So I'm writing full time now.
That's it's sad, but it's awesome. I mean, honestly, it's one of those crazy things in life where you find yourself, but it's nice to have I love writers. I love authors. I am one, or I'm trying to be one. Let's put it more realistically. And it's not like it's the easiest thing to do, but when you love it, it's not really what I call difficult. It's a passion project for me every time I sit to write a book. How is writing for you?
Well, for me, like I say, it's primarily just a release, an outlet. It's kind of a vicious cycle because the disorders that keep me from being grounded in reality make writing creative stories easier. But then the more I write, the worse my disorders get. So it's a cycle that I can't get away from. But a lot of artists have been that way throughout history, where they hear and see things differently. And then they have the ability to take those, false things and put them on a page or a canvas or a block of marble or something like that. Most of them, it doesn't help their torment, and most of them died horrible deaths for horrible reasons. But, whatever.
There is a lot of that, and there's a lot of truth to it. Like for me, when I come up with an idea, I probably end up looking off like an idiot into space, and I just get locked in, and people are like, what are you even thinking about right now? And you don't even realize it. I don't know how that process is for you. Was there a moment when you realized that, hey, I just get into this special zone when it comes to creating or coming up with an idea and then getting into the writing of it?
Well, it's not really something I have active control over.
Mm-hmm.
In my consciously, I don't really come up with the stories. They're just there in my head because I'm insane. But it does get bad. Like, I know what you're saying, how sometimes like I'll have an idea and it's not good if I'm in a public place, because like what we'll say in the military world, we'll say like that 1,000-meter stare where you're just sitting there and you're just staring. And everybody around you, like I said, everybody around you is like, dude, are you okay? But in reality, you're seeing movies overlaid on top of each other with like the characters you have. And then it freaks you out when somebody comes up to you and talks in the real world because you're so deep into this fantasy world. It's like, where'd you come from? So, yeah.
So what is the most favorite part for you? I'm curious about the writing aspect of it.
I would have to say the initial thought, like the initial idea, when I have like a new idea or whatever, like it's the part I like the most, but it's also the most terrifying part for like people around me, because the medication I take that keeps me grounded, I'm on a nice little line here where it keeps me grounded, but I still have that creativity. But when something new pops up, it's beyond what the medication can handle. And I already know like I'm done for at least 72 hours. I have no real contact with the real world. I'm just pacing around. I'm not eating. I'm not sleeping. So it's very unhealthy, terrifying to my family, but I love that part. So
I love the fact that you just said it that way too. Oh, let's talk about your military career briefly. How did you always know you wanted to be in the military?
Yeah, I always did. My dad did 30 years. It was a little bit of, it was a question as to which direction I was going to go branch wise. Like for a while, I wanted to go in the Marines, because if you look back like 30 years or so, you've got those commercials and stuff, join the military, blah, blah, blah. The Marines had the best commercials. When I was a little kid, their commercials were so freaking cool that when I was in high school, that's all I wanted to do. Then I changed my mind and went into the Army. And now that I know better, I should have joined the Air Force.
Well, and what was the experience like when you first get to boot camp?
Well, for me, it was kind of exciting because, I was finally like doing what I kind of always imagined doing. That excitement wore off after like 2 weeks, and I didn't really feel like being there anymore. But yeah, I had a good time.
I think I don't know. I never got to serve, and I'm always envious and so respectful of guys like you who do and have served. I mean, because that's a special thing. Because everybody in my family, except for me and my brother, were able to serve. And it's kind of disheartening, but then you see people like you, and it's like, man, it's so nice knowing you guys are out there and you've done this for the rest of us so we can do the things that we do. When you're in the service, do you ever think about any of that stuff, or are you just there doing your duty?
I think about it a little bit, especially when 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, those thoughts were like a lot more on the top of people's minds and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a job. I mean, I don't want to blow it off like that, but you're not really thinking that way all the time. Unless you're actually in the shit, then you're thinking about it. Other than that, you're just having a good time. You're doing what you love. Great place to be.
What's that camaraderie like?
It's a lot different than what you would say like a normal coworker and stuff like that. Because especially on the enlisted side, you're all living together. I think that they've redone so many barracks facilities to make them more like hotels. But when I was there, it was like the World War II style barracks or whatever, where everybody's like, you were lucky if your door worked. So it's like 2 to 4 people in a room, but that's just the way it was. So it's not like we had anything to compare it to. So you obviously get a lot more camaraderie, both sides. Like, because that also means that if you dislike somebody, you probably really hate them. But if you kind of like somebody, then it's like you really like them, like a brother or something like that.
That is so fascinating too. I don't know. I love you military guys. Y'all are just awesome like that. And how your outlook on the life is so different. But so when you come out of the military, how was that adjustment then?
Not easy. Working civilian jobs and stuff like that. I missed a golden opportunity. If I could do it again, because when I got out the first time, I was like 22. And being as that we're infantry, you get contacted by a lot of civilian law enforcement agencies and stuff like that. And I dropped the ball. I should have gone in that direction. I should have gone straight into civilian law enforcement right off the get-go. But instead, I started doing like random jobs. I hated every single one of them. That's one of the reasons why I went back into the Guard, so I could at least do some kind of service.
Well, that's cool. So how did the whole writing transformation, when you talked about going to Egypt and doing that, is that when you decided I'm going to write a book? Was that the moment, or was there a particular moment you can point to and said, I'm not cut out, I can't do the rest of this stuff in civilian life anymore, I'm going to do this?
Well, I had already finished my first book way back in 2010.
Oh, wow.
But I had a disagreement with the company I was working with, so I pulled it before it was actually produced. And then it was just, I had a family to support. So all that writing and stuff got pushed off to the side for like 12 more years. But when you get deployed, no matter what you're doing, you always have a lot of downtime, even as an officer, because your family's not there. So you have nothing else to do but work. And when you end up with all this free time, so I was like, whatever, let me get back into doing it again. And then I couldn't stop. Once I started, I just couldn't stop.
So let's talk about your book. So what's the name of the first one?
The first one was Eternal Night's Redemption. It's the first one of a 2-part prequel. That was the first one I had published.
That's, by the way, I love the cover of that too.
Is it the black cover with the couple?
Yeah, it's the black cover. With
okay. Yeah, that's a new.
I was going to say Eternal Night's Arrival. Is that the latest one?
That is the most recent one, yes.
All right, so you're going to take me down this Eternal Night's rabbit hole right here, because I'm looking at it and I'm already intrigued by them. And so let's start with Redemption. How did that story come about?
So I started on that one because I wanted to play around with vampires and stuff. And I had already read everything that Anne Rice had ever written, and I loved it. And since then, I haven't found anything else. Anything else with vampires since Anne Rice has been either for little kids, zany nonsense, action movies with no substance. So I started writing it. It follows a married couple of vampires. They're over 900 years old, and just their activities. The first one, Redemption, deals a lot with fighting the Catholic Church. And that's what covers in that book as they start learning and asking questions about themselves. The second part, Origins, is when they get some answers. That book gets pretty dark and pretty nasty, but they learn where they came from. And then Arrival is the actual main series. The first book of the main series, which is probably going to have like 30 more books coming. It takes place far into the future where it crosses into science fiction. So they're over 2,000 years old at this point, and how they have to deal with like intergalactic threats and stuff like that.
Oh my God, that sounds so interesting to me. I mean, but the Redemption one sounds good to me too, though. Just the fact that you went this direction with them.
Well, with the most people don't tackle what vampires are. They're demons, they're vampires. I'm not going to explain it any more than that. Or the vampires are the bad guys and nobody cares. I have to tackle what they are, because my writing focuses around real people and organic growth. And my characters are smart. Everybody thinks they're demons because vampires are demons. So they believe that too. They've believed that for 900 years. I have to get that out of the way. I have to get the religious thing out of the way. That's why the first book has to do with the Catholic Church. And then they start approaching the fact that, wait, we were wrong. We're not demons. Well, the next question they're going to ask is, well, what are we? I got to figure that out. I got to figure out an answer to the characters' questions, because they're not going to stop trying to figure out what they are. I went in a direction that I've never seen vampires taken before, and they learn about themselves and how their bodies work and stuff like that as the books continue. And it's probably like a dozen novels to go before they really discover everything about themselves.
Oh, I love that though. I think that's really cool, because you're right. I mean, vampires have always been treated, for the most part, so superficially. I mean, we knew that, like when Bram Stoker wrote his version and wrote the version of it, I guess, that everybody just really dives off of. It was blood. Everybody knows that basic thing. Oh, vampires need blood. They need to do that to survive. But I love your approach that there's so much more to a vampire. And I mean, because we are, like you said, we're all individuals. We're all human. We all grow and growth and have questions. What is that story like? That question alone right there fascinates me about this.
Yeah, because if I'm eliminating the supernatural, demonic side of things, then the only other side is scientific. So I have to find some kind of scientific explanation for an immortal blood-sucking monster. That's not easy. If you're trying to not make stuff up, if you're trying to make it sound at least somewhat realistic, but the answer to that is what carries them into their other directions. Because in Origins, when they figure out where they came from and how the vampire race was created, they also realize what's coming, what might be coming, like something that is on an intergalactic scale that might exist, it might not exist, but they take upon the mantle of, if it exists, we're going to try and stop it. And then there's a 1,300-year gap before the science fiction novel starts up, Arrival. Well, they got my titles are not subtle. the origins, they find out their origins. Arrival is because the bad guys arrived. Not subtle.
Yeah, still very intriguing.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. That's a great way to go. And the reason I'm asking this because I love how authors come up and storytellers come up with the things that they write about. That's what really fascinates me. Like your books, the Wolves and Ravens book. I'm a huge werewolf buff, and I don't know if that's anything to do with this, but just the word wolf is something special to me. So I write a lot of werewolf stuff. When you wrote that, what was the backstory for the Wolves and the Ravens books?
That about 13 years ago. Yeah, about 13 years ago, I met a girl that I planned on marrying, but she did not speak much English and I did not speak much Chinese. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I wrote a 6-page short story called The Wolf and the Raven. I had it translated and she loved it so much she married me. And then I always wanted to do something with that. And then I had to take a break from Eternal Nights to do the scientific research. I started writing and I ended up creating an entire trilogy out of that 6-page short story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You discovered the secret to finding your soulmate. That's incredible. I can only imagine that. So she's Chinese?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And I can only imagine what she thought when you gave her this book translated.
Yeah, and I just wish, even now, she doesn't have the English skills to read the books I'm writing now. But people ask me, because the Ravens are a race of women that are modeled after Chinese women. And people ask me about the influence and the culture. It has nothing to do with the Chinese culture. In the original short story, the Raven, when she took human form, was described as having Asian features because I wrote it for an Asian woman. That's why. So now that whole race was based off of that short story. That's the only reason why they're Chinese women. I stole the women and a little bit of the language, but there is no secret history or Chinese culture in that book. I just took their women.
That's hilarious. That's so good too. And again, I love that process. Where do you see your writing going? I mean, is it something you sit and think about, or you just like to do the process and write these books and publish them? Because and I asked that, and I guess I'm probably not asking this the right way, because I know some people are into it because I've talked to them. They're just into it to see how much money I can make, and that's a difficult thing doing this stuff anyway. But they're in it for the wrong thing, I think. But that's also how I look at it. How do you look at writing and publishing?
If you're in it for the money, give up now. Because if you're not famous or rich or have a connection, you're basically, no, it's not going to happen. Because the traditional world's not going to touch you. You have to do it on your own. And it is very difficult to make an actual living off of it. But for me, I can't stop. And I'm doing it for myself. I'm still doing it for myself. The fact that I'm publishing the books for other people, all right, whatever. But I could sell 0 copies forever, and it's not going to stop me from writing. I'm still going to keep writing and have like 40 or 50 books out there.
So, and I think that's such a cool thing too. So, what actually attracted you to dark fantasy versus these other kinds, and how do you balance that horror, fantasy, action, and romance?
Well, I say dark fantasy only because my writing is realistic. It goes to realistic places based on the organic growth of the story. Well, when you do that, there's a lot of dark crap because, you've got stress, like horrific things that are happening. And I brutally detail everything. And that's what makes it real. So I figured I have to call it dark fantasy just because of all the dark things that happen. But really, my writing is for people with more mature tastes. You have to think about it. Like it's complicated for a reason because I think that's what people will enjoy. And like I said, if somebody's really stressed out, you're going to see the results of that stress. And sometimes it's bad. I cross any line, like psychotic breaks. There's crucifixions, suicidal ideations, rape. There's all sorts of things because people can be great or they can be horrific.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So why do you think readers are so fascinated by like vampires and werewolves and the paranormal in general?
I think it's just a form of escapism. Not everybody likes those kinds of things. I feel like my market research has come back like insanely positive, like over 90%. I think people will like anything that's good and real because there's not really anything like that out there anymore. Like the entertainment industry gave up a long time ago.
Yeah, it's quite pathetic. I just watched the new Dracula movie. Oh God, last week.
Nosferatu, is that the one you're talking about?
No, I watched Nosferatu a while back. I actually like that a lot more than I like this remake of Bram Stoker's Dracula that it just did. I just did not care for it.
No, because you've already seen it. If Dracula is in the movie, I don't care what else is in the movie. I've seen it. Dracula has been in like 100 movies. I don't need to see the 101st. And you watch these commercials, and like I know that people will bend the rules and stuff a little bit, kind of like put PR spins and stuff. But it's gotten to the point to where commercial promotions just outright lie to you. Like they did the live action Moana movie was advertised as being like the best movie in the world. The promotions were talking about all these awards, breathtaking, top movie, blah blah. You Google it, and it's one of the biggest disasters in the history of Disney. But they're promoting it as the top movie in the world. It never was. How can they say that? I mean, how can you just bold-faced lie to people?
And yeah, that's our media today. That's why I trust nothing anymore. It's like, you know what? If I need to know something, I'll dig down and I'll do my own research if there's something I really need to know, because I don't trust anybody with anything at this point. But it's funny though when you're doing this writing, and at least it is for me when I'm trying to create my fantasy worlds. It's one of the hardest parts, but it's also one of the most enjoyable aspects of it for me. So when you're doing that, how do you build those believable worlds?
In the fantasy trilogy, there's a challenge there. It's a good challenge, but there's a challenge there because you want to build. You get to do whatever you want because it's fantasy. So there's a lot of world building, but then you can go too far. You know, there are things like that I'm very descriptive on because the audience needs to know to not get confused with the story. But then there's other things that I never talk about. And the two big things for me in that series is architecture and their clothing. Very, very rarely, other than like armor and stuff, very, very rarely do I describe what the characters are wearing or what the buildings look like, because it has nothing to do with the plot or the story, and it's a book. When you get to those parts in the book, I want you to imagine what you want to see. So
yeah, I like that.
It's a choice. I mean, it's a judgment choice that with people that write that stuff. When it comes to Eternal Nights, it's a little more straightforward because we're talking about the real world. Even when it's in the future, it's still like our world, our universe. So a lot of the stuff is already done for you. So you just color in the details. No,
and that's actually a really great point there, because so many people write so many different ways, especially when it comes to world building. It can be such a difficult thing, and yet I think sometimes we make it harder than it has to be. So, so I understand what you're talking about 100%.
One of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they try to do all their world building up front. The book one of both series is full of world building. It has to be. It's the first book. But the world building is sprinkled throughout the book when it's necessary. That way you don't get bored.
No, I agree 100%. That's what I've done with my series. Is the first book kind of sets the tone, and mine's built as the story is built. Like I let the story surprise me a lot of the times. I let my characters develop on their own. Is that when you're creating these things? Do you I'm trying to figure out how I need to put this. How much research actually goes into your fantasy, and how much of it is just you and your influences?
No research at all for the fantasy. I will research specific things to make sure I'm saying them right.
Yeah.
I would, and like I said, my stuff's brutally detailed. I had a roommate who was a doctor, and because he was a doctor, I used to ask him a lot of questions, just because if one character eviscerates another character, I want to know which organ falls out first. That's the level of detail that I want to know. I want to know, like the vampires. I originally described their fangs as being over like something like 8 centimeters long.
Yeah.
But then I realized that's not going to work, because that long, if they bit you in the neck, the teeth would go into your vertebrae. So I shortened the description to 6 centimeters, which is about as long as it can be without hitting bone, basically. That's the kind of detail that I researched for the books.
And that stuff like that is super important. And do you think that realism makes fantasy more immersive?
Oh yeah, it's the only way to be immersive. Like if it's not real, it takes you out of it. Like you can, and this happens all the time in entertainment. That's why everybody hates it. You can have a character, because everybody outlines the plot and then they force the characters into it. So you could watch a movie and you could actually enjoy some of these main characters. And then at some point in the movie, they spend about 2 minutes being the dumbest people in the world. They have to, so the plot can happen, because they will outsmart their own plot. And because they didn't write the plot to support the characters, it takes you out of the immersion. It takes you out of it. So yeah, that's why I like to think that my books are very immersive. I've had a lot of people call them binge reading or whatever, because you can't stop, because you're inside the world, which is the whole point. So,
I mean, I agree. I mean, that's a huge compliment, because I've read too many books where I'm like, okay, I'll just come back to this later. And I hate feeling that way. I like being able to just dive in and go, God, I need to cancel the rest of my appointments so I can finish this up. And I think the same with Hollywood right now. I don't know if there's a real writer left in Hollywood. It doesn't feel like it. And I'm sure there are. But God, the stuff that we get is so just craptastical. It's insane.
And they're making a lot more money than you and I are.
Absolutely.
And my 15-year-old could write better.
And it's so sad, right? Because you look at it like, how does that? Well, then we know how. But I mean, but still, it's like, come on.
And it's even worse when you think they had to write it, somebody had to check it, somebody had to produce it, and an actor or an actress had to say it. Every single one of them is guilty of being an idiot.
Oh,
I mean, people say it's not the actor's fault or the actress's fault. And if they're in an iron-tight contract, I get it. But I like to think in their place, they're saying, dude, I'm not saying this.
Well, I think Henry Cavill's a great example of this with the whole Witcher drama. So he's like, dude, this is not what this character would say. What are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
But then you got the Star Wars fiasco in Disney with the latest sequel trilogy. And it's like, we went into this $4 billion spending spree without an idea of what the hell we're doing.
And that's a hot button issue too.
It is.
I mean, people either despise it or they somehow fall in love with it. There is no middle ground with that trilogy.
There is not, because I'm old school, because I grew up with the original. So obviously I have my leanings and it's not going to change. Yeah. But it does boggle the mind, because if you truly look at it straight down the middle, you realize like there's no story here that they're telling. It's just, we're going to put cool things in a line and see what happens. Because our effects are awesome.
It makes no sense. None of the science makes any sense. And yeah, obviously it's in the future, so it's science fiction and stuff. But the science that does actually apply makes no sense. Like the very first one, they had that Star Killer base that fired, and towards the end, it was firing at all those planets. What? Where did all those planets come from?
I'm like, are y'all all within the same solar system?
I know. The fastest this weapon can travel is light speed, and these planets, it would take like dozens of years, but all of a sudden they're in the same solar system? Where'd that come from? At least the Death Star flew around.
Well, right. And then what original Star Wars, like when the Millennium Falcon goes to Alderaan, it wasn't 30 minutes. And like, here we are.
Yeah.
It took some time to get to the place you're going.
Yeah, you can, like, I have to make up a bunch of stuff for the science fiction, but the research went into making sure that I did not counter known science, at least not without a reason or whatever. And it takes a while to explain it, because like I said, all I care about is realism. So it's very difficult to exposit information in a realistic way without it being boring. Like the government. People might be curious about how the government in this futuristic society works. You're going to have to wait till book 3, because there's no reason any of these characters would randomly start talking about the government. There's no realistic reason. So I can't explain it yet. It's not going to be, there's a little bit because they have to have governmental meetings, but it won't be until the third book, until something happens that makes sense for there to be a discussion about the government. So that's how I have to do things to keep it real.
I'm going to have to get your books now. And I don't, the hardest part for me is when I find an author and they have an interesting story like yours and I want to read their stuff. First of all, it's finding the time to do it. But then I don't want to be influenced by somebody else. And that is the danger for me sometimes. I get real skeptical when I write. Sometimes it's something I've read before. When I first started writing, I had that worry a lot. Like something I've read before is going to influence something I'm writing and I don't even know it. And all of a sudden somebody said, well, you're just plagiarizing this. I'm like, what are we doing? Have you ever come across that in your writing while you're writing something? Oh, crap. Actually,
yeah. And the thing is, these days, all you have to do is change a couple of sentences and you can get away with publishing it. That's how bad things have gotten. But my very first book, not published, the very first thing that I was writing was a science fiction book called Means of Vengeance. I was writing it in high school. I got about halfway through it, and then it occurred to me that I was taking too much from a book that was written by my famous author, from my favorite author. There were too many parallels. Now, I showed it to somebody much later, to a publishing company or whatever, and they were like, you can publish this easily. It is like completely different. But it didn't feel different enough for me, so I chucked it. And then it's a very common question that agents or publishers or people ask you, what are the comparables? You're supposed to point out, they're not going to read 400 pages. So what is close enough to your story to give me an idea what I'm going to, it's a very common question and I can't answer it. I don't understand. I have never read or seen anything like my story. If I had, I would throw my story away and write a new one. It's original. It's supposed to be original. Yeah. So I hate that question.
It's one I interviewed a lady, a PR lady the other day, and she was so good. She had a little piece of advice, and I was like, well, I've never really considered it, putting a forward in my book. And she said the idea behind it is you write the forward about what inspired you to write this book. She said because most of the interviews you'll ever go on, if you do that sort of thing, when you go out on the media interviews where you only have like 3 minutes to answer a question and you're off air, they're going to ask you most of the time, not about your book, but what inspired you to write the book, which was very interesting. And I found, and I was going to put it in this one, I thought, this is difficult because I know kind of what inspired me. I love aliens. I love the idea of the traditional Men in Black, not the Hollywood version. Those scary guys that come visit you if you've seen something you shouldn't. I mean, I love the idea behind a lot of that. But how do you put that down? And so have you put a forward in your books? Do you do anything like that? Have you thought about doing any kind of marketing?
Well, I am now, but no, I have not done that since. I never, because there's a lot of things. I started doing an excerpt. Like I always have an excerpt in the beginning of the book, except for Arrival, I don't think. And Arrival is the first time, like a lot of times if you read a book, at the end, there's like a teaser for the next book. Mm-hmm. I never did that before until this one. But since all of my books are a series, I probably should do that. And maybe, and on the next one, I'll start doing a forward too. Why not? I never thought of it. But I have read them in other books. I just never thought to do it for mine.
Yeah, and I hadn't either. And she put that idea in my head. And I'm like, now I can't get it out. She said, well, the good thing is that you're an independent author, really, so you can go back and change that at any time. So you're good there. But if you do go with a publisher, you may want to definitely consider doing those going forward on your stuff because it's just going to make it easier for you when you do get in front of people to say, hey, this is what it is, because they're not going to do like your long form podcast are and just get down to all the fun stuff we get to talk about on these things. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was cool and something I had never thought about. So let me ask you, what's your advice for aspiring fantasy writers?
My advice would be to join the Alliance for Independent Authors. You don't have to have anything published. They have 3 different levels of membership. You can join them for $50 a year. It's mostly a nonprofit organization that caters to people like you. There's a lot of helpful tips and stuff. And when you need companies, like I need to find a publishing company, I need to find a marketing company, you can bring up those questions and you can see companies that have been vetted versus the 90% of companies that are just out to take your money. So it's a phenomenal resource that I wish I had found 10 years ago.
Oh, and I didn't know that even existed. I thank you for that. That's good, because I guess I'll be joining that, because things like that matter. So, should writers chase trends, or do you think they should just write what they love? Because you see that today.
You have to write what you love, because if you just chase trends, your book's going to suck. You can't. Everybody can write a book. Anybody can write a book, but most people shouldn't. And if you're chasing a trend, you're probably going to be writing about something you don't know anything about. So your writing's going to be terrible. I made that joke a couple of years ago that I could take a book, make the title like "As the World Burns," and then that acronym thing, the LBT, whatever that acronym is, put it in big bold letters, the planet on fire. I could fill the book with nothing but Mother Goose nursery rhymes, and I'd probably be a millionaire. Everybody would buy that book because of the cover, and that's the hot button issue. And for years, they would be dissecting those nursery rhymes, trying to find out what I was really trying to say. Whereas all I did was copy and paste. I will not be known for doing something like that. I will write the stories that come out of my head.
There you go. So what do the readers have to look forward to next from you?
Well, the most recent one came out about 6 weeks ago. So the next one we're debating as to when it should get published, whether I want to rush it for the holiday season or early next year. But once things settle down, I'm going to go for 2 books a year. That's not feasible right now because there's too much stuff going on, but that is what I hope the future is, mainly because if it's not at least 2 books a year, I'm afraid I won't get them all done before I die of old age. And I'd really like to finish before I die of old age.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Absolutely. Dude, how can people follow you, find your books, and get to know you as an author?
The best place is the website, richardspegal.com. I've got the spelling right above my wings here. I was told to do that because everybody was putting an I in the name and not finding me. So that's the spelling. It's a phenomenal website. There's movie-style trailers for each book. There's a lot of videos from behind the scene. There's a lot of links to shows like this, so you can go to different podcasts and support those hosts as well. My Instagram is @RichardSpegalBooks, and my Facebook, again, is my name. But all the content comes from the website. And obviously the books themselves are on Amazon and stuff, but there's links on the website.
Awesome. Well, Richard, I appreciate your time today, brother.
Oh, thanks again for having me. I love doing stuff like this.
I loved it. This was awesome. And I got a new book I can pick up now, or actually got several, it sounds like.
Yeah, you got 6.
I can't wait to read your writing, though. I mean, because I love that. And not since Anne Rice have I been moved by some of these supernatural. I love vampires, I love werewolves and that sort of thing, but I don't write about them. But because I don't feel like I've got the grasp on it to do it. As much as I love them, I just don't feel that way. But I'm glad somebody like you does. So now it gives me something to look forward to.
Yeah, and it'll be your own opinion. I keep getting told paranormal and supernatural because there's vampires in it, but I don't feel that it's that genre. To me, I feel like it's normal action fiction, normal science fiction that just happens to have some of those types of characters sprinkled around. That's an opinion thing, though.
Yeah, either way, if it's good, I'm looking forward to it. So I can't wait to get my hands on it. Dude, appreciate you being here, and I look so much forward to seeing you again down the road. I hope you'll come back.
All right. Have a nice night.
Thanks, brother. You too. All right, folks. There you go. Author Richard Spegal right there. Go check his books out. Go get them. These things look fantastic. That was a great conversation. I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot, as I often do, because we have such great guests on here. Again, that was a lot of fun. And I love hearing these guys passionate about what they do. That's what inspires me. I hope it inspires you. You have been listening to the FAFO Podcast. Facts, truth, no BS. Let's F and go. I'll see you next time.
Four on the floor, have a tank of gas. Does he boots on the wood, let the whiskey pass? I ain't preaching from a pulpit, I'm talking from the scar. You can dress up a lie, but it won't get far. They call it toxic.